very cheap rooming house in an area that's frequented by drunks and prostitutes. And he sits by himself, I conjecture, composing music most of the day. And then he goes out for walks. He loves to see the panorama of the world passing before him, back to his room, and composes and drinks. Erwin was rediscovered in California in 1973. At that time, he had just married a woman whom eventually he described to me as the woman he loved more than Liszt himself. And since he's had 9 wives, this is a man who knows quite a bit about love. And his 9th wife, Elsie Swan, was quite ill. She was 10 years older than he, and he needed funds to care for her, to pay for her medical care. And the only method he had to get these funds was to play some concerts. An associate of ours, Mr. Terry McNeil, just through coincidence happened to be walking down the street in San Francisco one afternoon in 1973 with a little tape recorder in his hand. And he walked past the old First Presbyterian Church and saw a sign on the door that said a free piano recital was going to take place at 2 in the afternoon. And he went in and recorded the recital after he heard the first few notes. Mr. Nyiregyhàzi's playing is of the kind that you know immediately you're in the presence of something you've never experienced before. And he got in touch with me immediately afterwards and played me the tapes. And that's when I was bitten by the bug. I decided that if it was the last thing I ever did, I was going to find this man and make some recordings to this very great pianist, the greatest that I've ever heard or run into in my life, so that we could share this music with the public.
Now, the man who thought of poverty as a perpetual inconvenience is being paid by the Ford Foundation, which threw away its policies to preserve something of Nyiregyhàzi for the future. His music is being recorded under the cautious care of conductor Richard Kapp.
I knew this was totally illogical as a project for the Ford Foundation. The Ford Foundation does not pick up individual artists and make it possible for them to record. But the larger interest here, obviously, in my mind, very simply, was the, in a sense, transcendental effect of this music making. That it has nothing to do with playing the piano ultimately. It has to do with how you, it's a direct emotional or a direct communion.
It's the most uncanny thing to see him play because he makes these gigantic sounds, but you can see almost no motion. In the most intense moments, when the sounds are the very largest, you cannot even see the keys being depressed in the piano. And some people have said they've seen flashes of light come out of his hand, but no movement.
My temperament required, I would say, companionship, very much so, and still does. So that was a tremendous problem in my life, but I tried to cope with it as well as I could.
He was a passionate, romantic adolescent. Probably a pre-adolescent as well, as a matter of fact, and certainly at this stage there's no difference in that at all. He's still passionately engaged in the desire to love emotionally, physically, and all of that.
Maybe my marriage has had an adverse effect upon my musical career. I don't say that with absolute certainty, though, but there is a possibility. But I didn't get... I was married 9 times, but that doesn't mean that I was divorced 9 times. 3 of my wives died. Making love to a woman. I can make the woman shake like hell. But on the other hand, I can say, sir, you're so wonderful, you're so tender. And my attitude towards the piano is very much like my attitude towards a woman I want to make love to. In other words, when I make love on the piano, it's really the woman. The piano is only a mirror, not to the mirror, but fairly good. I'm not at all sure whether I am a genius, whether I am a genius. Assuming that I am, I would say I will feel very humble. whether it is my genius, let us say, or the genius of Beethoven or Liszt or Brahms or Immanuel Kant, it is subject to a power so far above the individual human being that we can't even grasp it. But we must realize it, that the ultimate cause of genius is far above the result of the genius, you know, sir. Maybe I'm even a greater man than a pianist.
Since we first ran that story, Erwin Nyiregyhàzi has continued his erratic and eccentric gallop through life. He's parted company with Richard Kapp, as well as Greg Benko, and also with wife number 9. He's dropped out of sight again with wife number 10. But at least this time he's left behind a batch of recordings. Perhaps in 10 years from now, another music critic walking by a lonely church will hear some haunting music.